National Electrical Code Section 110.26 addresses workspace about electrical equipment operating at 600 volts, nominal or less to ground. This section is crucial for ensuring the safety of personnel working on or near electrical equipment. Specifically, 110.26 AON deals with the depth of the working space. It mandates a clearance of not less than 3 feet in front of electrical equipment, which includes panel boards. This clearance is measured from the enclosure front and should be clear and unobstructed. The actual required depth varies based on the voltage to ground and the condition of the equipment on the opposite side of the working space. These conditions are outlined in Table 110.26 AON. Condition 1 exists where there are exposed live parts on one side and no live or grounded parts on the other side of the working space, or where there are exposed live parts on both sides but they are effectively protected by insulation. Condition 2 applies when there are exposed live parts on one side and grounded parts on the other side. Condition 3 is when there are exposed live parts on both sides of the working space, unprotected and not insulated. The depth requirements increase with higher voltages and more hazardous conditions. For instance, for equipment operating at 151 volts to 600 volts, the required depth is 3.5 feet for condition 2 and 4 feet for condition 3. Adequate working space allows electricians and other qualified personnel to safely inspect, maintain, and repair electrical equipment. It provides enough room to maneuver tools, test equipment, and perform tasks without risking accidental contact with energized parts. Now let's talk about 110.26 ATWO, which focuses on the width of the working space. It specifies that the width of the working space in front of the electrical equipment shall be the width of the equipment or 30 inches, whichever is greater. The working space should also permit at least a 90-degree opening of equipment doors or hinged panels. This ensures that the equipment can be fully accessed for inspection, maintenance, or repair without being obstructed by walls, columns, or other equipment. The height of the working space is addressed in 110.26 A3. It states that the working space shall be clear and extend from the grade, floor, or platform to a height of 6.5 feet or the height of the equipment, whichever is greater. Within this height, there should be no obstructions such as piping, ducts, or other equipment that could impede access to the electrical equipment. Maintaining the required height ensures that personnel can work comfortably and safely without having to crouch or maneuver around obstacles. Now let's dive into 110.26b, which concerns access and entrances to the working space. It states that at least one entrance of sufficient area shall be provided to give access to the working space about electrical equipment. For equipment rated 1200 amps or more and over 6 feet wide that contains overcurrent devices, there shall be one entrance not less than 24 inches wide and 6.5 feet high at each end of the working space. When the location permits a continuous and unobstructed way of exit travel, the required working space is permitted to have only one entrance. The purpose of having multiple entrances is to provide alternative escape routes in case of an emergency, such as an arc flash or electrical fire. Sufficient access is vital for quick and safe evacuation. Furthermore, 110.26c addresses illumination. Adequate illumination shall be provided for all working spaces about electrical equipment. The lighting should be arranged to minimize shadows and glare, ensuring that personnel can clearly see the equipment and perform their tasks safely. Insufficient lighting can lead to errors, accidents, and difficulty in identifying potential hazards. Section 110.26d deals with headroom. The minimum headroom of working spaces around service equipment, switchgear, panel boards, or motor control center shall be 6.25 feet. This is a minimum height clearance that allows personnel to stand up straight and work comfortably without hitting their heads on overhead obstructions. Now turning our attention to doors, NEC 110.26 ATWO explicitly addresses the issue of doors obstructing access to electrical equipment. It states that doors or hinged panels shall not be permitted to be installed in such a manner as to prevent the required clearance to equipment or obstruct access to the equipment or to the working space about the equipment. This means that if a door, when opened, swings into the required 3-foot clearance space in front of a panel board, it is generally a violation of the code. The primary intent of this requirement is to ensure that qualified personnel can safely access and service electrical equipment without being hindered by obstructions. Imagine a scenario where a panel board is installed in a narrow corridor and a door opens directly in front of it. When the door is open, it reduces the available working space to less than the required 3 feet. This makes it difficult and potentially dangerous for an electrician to perform tasks such as troubleshooting, replacing breakers, or conducting routine maintenance. The reduced space increases the risk of accidental contact with energized parts and limits the electrician's ability to maneuver tools and equipment safely. However, the code recognizes that there may be exceptional cases where strict adherence to the clearance requirements is not feasible or practical. Therefore, exceptions are provided under certain conditions. These exceptions allow for some flexibility while still maintaining a reasonable level of safety. Let's explore some specific examples of situations where installing a panel board behind a door might be permissible under the exceptions. The exceptions to 110.26 ATWO would need to be carefully considered to determine if the specific installation meets the criteria. These exceptions typically involve situations where the door, even when open, does not significantly obstruct access to the equipment or the working space. For instance, if the door opens only partially and does not impede access to the panel board, or if the panel board is recessed in a way that the door does not interfere with the required working space, an exception might apply. To determine whether an exception applies, it is essential to consult with a qualified electrical inspector or engineer who can evaluate the specific installation and ensure that it meets all applicable code requirements. They will consider factors such as the size and location of the panel board, the swing of the door, the available working space, and any other relevant conditions. It's also crucial to remember that even if an exception applies, the installation must still comply with all other applicable code requirements, such as those related to illumination, headroom, and access. The overall goal is to ensure that the electrical equipment can be safely accessed and serviced while minimizing the risk of electrical hazards. In summary, while NEC 110.26 generally prohibits installing panel boards behind doors that swing into the required clearance space, exceptions may exist under certain conditions. It is crucial to carefully evaluate each installation and consult with qualified professionals to ensure compliance with all applicable code requirements. Doing so will help ensure the safety of personnel working on or near electrical equipment and minimize the risk of electrical accidents. The consequences of not complying with NEC 110.26 can be severe. In addition to increasing the risk of electrical shock and arc flash hazards, non-compliance can also result in fines, legal liabilities, and insurance complications. Electrical inspectors have the authority to issue citations and require corrections for installations that do not meet code requirements. Failure to comply with these orders can lead to further penalties and even the shutdown of electrical systems. Furthermore, if an electrical accident occurs due to non-compliance with NEC 110.26, the responsible parties may be held liable for damages, injuries, and even fatalities. Insurance companies may also deny coverage for claims arising from installations that do not meet code requirements. Therefore, it is essential to take NEC 110.26 seriously and ensure that all electrical installations comply with its provisions. This will not only protect the safety of personnel, but also minimize the risk of legal and financial consequences. Remember, the National Electrical Code is a living document that is updated regularly to reflect changes in technology and best practices. It is important to stay current with the latest edition of the code and any applicable local amendments. Continuing education courses, industry publications, and professional organizations can provide valuable resources for staying informed about code changes and best practices. By staying informed and adhering to the code, you can help ensure the safety and reliability of electrical systems and protect the lives of those who work on or near them.